Father, please forgive me, for I know not what I do. So I'm back down on my knees, please my case to you. I've been caught up in this world when you place me in. Living in hell, the only way I know to sin. I tried church, but got blindsided by the turn. And just the other day, I caught my pastor copping work. Lord, please, show me a sign. I'm losing my way, but I'm out of time. I thought I found the perfect match, but she wasn't for me. Ever since I lost my wife, relationships are falling. I'm losing my mind, there clearly ain't no turning back. My only counteract is Keisha and the Palisade. My life is nowhere near nice, and I know if I don't get it right, I'm bound to die. Let's say you read death after.
Now, what makes this so exciting to me about this whole thing is, in my lifetime, I've had the opportunity to know a lot of people that have been involved in the incarceration system. Tons of them, okay? But now I've also had the privilege to know everybody as part of the community. Tons of them. And man, I've had even more of a privilege in most cases to know everybody's parents, their cousins, their sisters, their brothers, tons of them. So it occurred to me that we're working on doing a good job for the individual as they try and re-enter into society, which is a wonderful step in the right direction. However, after doing and dealing with this with folks on both sides of the fence, shall we say, it's been obvious to me that it's taking more than just an individual having a lot of desire to do the right thing, okay? These days, if what I come to understand that whatever time that you serve, when you're released, you come back to the zip code that you was at, correct?
Correct.
So now, Hilltop is the zip code for a lot of people, right? Now, as everybody knows that's been around here outside and looking at the changes, a tremendous amount has changed over the last 5 years. A tremendous amount has changed in terms of housing, the ability to stop at somebody's house and knock on the door and say, hey man, can I come in? You know, or the ability for family members that's in the area. None of that exists anymore. But people are still, this is your zip code. Okay? So now, what we're here to do today in a short period of time is reestablish a level of importance. Okay? We want to establish a level of importance for not only the individual who's coming back out into the community, we want to establish some importance for the families of the individuals who have been incarcerated. Okay? We want to establish a level of interest and urgency for the community that people have come from. You know, because look, I just want to say this to people, okay? As much as people are loving, yeah, we got 99 churches up here on Hilltop, so you know folks is fairly loving and forgiving and stuff like that. But folks, there's a lot, some of the stuff folks did, there's just a lot of forgiving that it takes. And without people making any type of effort to at least seek some forgiveness or restitution, it becomes difficult in these times, especially for a community to embrace certain people. So what we want to talk about is how can we make that connection stronger with the community and individuals, so you're not just coming out here by yourself, okay? That we do have the family and reestablish families, okay? And we're reestablishing a community connection because, like I said, everybody that I see here, I've seen before out on these streets around here, okay? So without further ado, let's get into this beautiful day.
Tired of being in these streets. Damn, something's gotta change. God's got something for me, so until the day comes, I'll pray. Keep your head up. Take it from me. All you gotta do is pray.
Okay. Here we go. For many individuals, the journey through the criminal justice system doesn't end with release. In fact, it's just the beginning of a complex and often challenging path back to society. Pre-release and re-entry are critical phases where we have the opportunity to not only support the individual, but also to strengthen families and communities. By focusing on health and wellness, we can address the physical, mental, and social needs that are vital for successful reintegration.
Tired of being in these streets. Damn, something's gotta change. God's got something for me, so until the day comes, I'll pray. Keep your head up. Take it from me. All you gotta do.
Okay, the way that I see it, folks, this is a wraparound thing. It is not an individual process because we all have to be involved in reentry. Okay, we've all got to have a place for people to come back to this nurturing. Okay, that if there isn't family, that we can create family, that we can help people to reestablish family. You know, some of them broken areas, and we have the ability to do that. Okay, we definitely have the ability to do that. I know because I've seen it. By discussing the challenges faced by individuals during pre-release and reentry, then move on to explore innovative practices that promote wellness. Lastly, we'll look at how we can all contribute to building healthier communities that support reintegration and reduce recidivism. Now, recidivism, I love that word. That's one of my favorite words. Why, you might say? Glad you asked. Okay. Now, recidivism to me is an interesting subject because let's just ask, how many people have been incarcerated one time? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you've been incarcerated one time. Now, how many people have been incarcerated 2 times? Raise your hand if you've been incarcerated twice. Okay, how about 3? I know, just keep throwing it up there. You don't even have to bring it down. I understand. But you get my point. Recidivism. Now, I'm doing this for 3 decades, people, seeing the same people that I know growing up. Next time I see them, 24, coming out, going back in. So I've been exposed on a community level to recidivism, and it breaks my heart. It has broken my heart so many times to see people that I just embrace and I see for 2 months and they're back in jail, incarcerated, okay? And I believe that that's not necessary. I honestly believe that that's not necessary. And especially if we have the components of family and community already structured for this hilltop, because we go back as a community 50 years, 60 years. Some of the communities that have just sprung up over the last 20, 30 years, they're dealing with a lot of growth, they're dealing with a lot of people coming into the community, okay? And it's a difficult struggle right now with so many people being impacted by incarceration. But we've got a gift here if we want to take advantage of it, okay? So, let's talk about trauma real quick here. Now, I know everybody here has heard the word trauma, okay? But now, for the intents and purposes, since everybody knows somebody here that's been incarcerated, yes, you guessed it, this particular presentation has to deal with trauma as it deals with people who are incarcerated and have been incarcerated. This particular presentation deals with gang members and gang women's, if that's the right term, that have been incarcerated, okay? And some of the things that they've had to deal with for themselves personally, for their family, okay, and for their community. So when we talk about trauma, let's stay focused on that group today, okay? Just for today. Let's stay focused on gang members who have been incarcerated, okay? We're gonna talk about trauma. Okay, significantly impacts pre-release and reentry individuals by exacerbating mental health challenges such as PTSD and prolonged grief disorder. Has anybody here been diagnosed or feel like they have PTSD from the situation? Didn't even let me finish the sentence. But yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Now, trauma brings that on, okay? Anything that reminds us of situations, unresolved psychological wounds often lead to difficulties in maintaining stability, relationships, and overall well-being during the reentry process. Now,
about 70% of people around the world will experience at least one traumatic event in their lifetime. Trauma is a threatening event or a series of events that is emotionally or physically harmful, which may include violence, abuse, neglect, natural disasters, or losing a loved one due to a trauma.
Did anybody hear anything that you hadn't already heard before about trauma? Anything new? Okay. Yes.
Tired of being in these streets. Damn, something's gotta change. God's got something for me, so until the day comes, I'll pray.
So they mentioned that sometimes PTSD symptoms can pop up for no reason at all, and not no reason, but just no external reason. I've experienced that myself. but it's not something that I think is talked about enough. Triggers are very real, and it's a real thing, but sometimes there's just things going on internally that no one can see, and so there's no explanation for what's happening.
Did everybody hear that? Did y'all get that little piece right there? Okay, so we all know the trauma affects us all differently. So speaking in terms of the relationship between trauma, gang activity, and incarceration. Okay, now let's focus on that type of trauma. Okay, now without even going into too much detail, I would like people to just go back in your minds and think of just a few traumatic situations that occurred while you was actively involved in gang activity. Just think about a few traumatic situations based on this definition here of what we already know about trauma. Okay, I want us to take a quick peek and think about a time in our childhood that was traumatic, okay? Just think about those things, and then we can start adding up what our trauma level really looks like. Okay, let's go to the next one. Condition number 2, PTSD. PTSD can severely affect pre-release and re-entry individuals by triggering intense anxiety, flashbacks, and emotional numbness, making it difficult for them to adjust to life outside incarceration. These symptoms often impede their ability to form healthy relationships, find stable employment, and fully reintegrate into society. Now, has anybody here that's been released experienced any issues in any of these areas? Raise your hand. Just any of them. Okay. So now we got the PTSD and we got the trauma. Okay, now look. I will tell you this, folks. I do not believe in labeling myself or other people. So somebody says, well, you got PTSD. Oh, you got a bipolar issue. Oh, you got this. Oh, you got that. Well, at a certain point, you got so many things you can't remember what your last name is. Okay? So to avoid this, I'm saying let's look at the symptoms. Okay? It's no reason for everybody to run over here and start making doctor's appointments. I think I got PTSD, MSD, COVID-19. No, we don't need to go through all that. Because what we're talking about here is self-healing. Okay, we're going to get into some real self-healing, and we want to be our own best advocate when it comes to health and wellness and re-entry. Okay, so PTSD. Let's take a quick peek. We're not going to watch the whole episode, but let's just take a little bit about this here on PTSD.
Back on the counteract, keep sharing the power side. My life nowhere near nice, and I know if I don't get it right, I'm bound to die. They say you reach death after you live your life a bitch. My mama's gone now, it's probably me.
Tired of being in these streets, damn, something's gotta change. God's got something for me, so until the day comes, I'll pray. Keep your head up, take it from me, all you gotta do is pray. Keep your head up.
Running out of time, I thought I found the perfect match, but she wasn't for me. Ever since I lost my wife, relationships are boring. I'm losing my mind, there clearly ain't no turning back. On the counteract, keep sharing the power side. My life, nowhere.
Numbers that they're talking about, but to the response from the community. Did you hear the mayor? And did you look how enraged he was? And he's pointing about residents and citizens in his own community about get out of here, take it someplace else. Where are you going to take it to? Would they look to invite you in if you're a gang member? Ever thought about that? But take it someplace else. Okay? So, if you can't take it someplace else, like, let's just talk about what we could do if we couldn't take it someplace else and we wanted to rebuild, like, say, Hilltop. Right? We couldn't take it someplace else, and we got to rebuild Hilltop. Well, now, what type of things based on that type of attitude? Because that's what you're coming back to. Okay? You're coming back to people that still remember the sting of not having somebody to grow up with, not having a grandparent. Okay, so now, what type of plan have we been working on to address that? Not just individually, but collectively. Okay, because last time I checked, Hilltop Prep was a neighborhood set. It wasn't 1-6, it wasn't 1-5, it wasn't dual, it was neighborhood. Am I correct, or did I miss something? Okay, so if it's Hilltop neighborhood, I remember that one day, I got pissed off, I don't know if y'all was out, but I kept asking people real quick, man, and nobody could give me a good explanation. So I've been drinking that day. I can say that now because, well, I was drinking that day. And I decided to get this big old board out, and I painted it white, and I put a picture of a community, and I put in C, community, R, resurrection, I, N, P, progress. Community resurrection in progress, okay? That's what I said CRIP means to me. So whenever anybody asks me, I said, it is community resurrection in progress. Now, that may sound like a reach back then because everybody was trying to get what they could, I get it. But now that we're reflecting, folks, and we got kids of our own, okay, that doesn't sound like a bad idea, community resurrection in progress, does it? Especially if we can keep the acronym. Ain't nobody gonna go to jail for saying I'm part of community resurrection in progress. I guarantee you. I'll go down there and fight for you, man. If they pick anybody up for saying it's gang related, it should be gang related because that's a group of people trying to get something done, isn't it? Ain't that a gang? Okay. So, now, here's when we'll get to the cure. One of the big cures is relationships and understanding, okay? There's so little of that going on right now. Good quality relationships, okay? When I say relationship, I'm not talking about people that you know. That's not relationship, it's a kind of relationship. But what we're talking about here is, I know this person, I see you, I understand you, I feel you, okay? Those are relationships, and those are a commodity that we need to get more of out in the community if we're going to turn the curve on things and start looking for cures, okay? Understanding and supporting relationships are crucial for pre-release and re-entry individuals as they provide the emotional foundation needed to build trust and stability in their lives. These connections foster a sense of belonging, accountability, which can significantly enhance their chances of successful reintegration and reduce the likelihood of recidivism. I am so stuck on the recidivism. We have a natural response to someone dying. My grandmother died of old age, you know, my uncle died of liver cancer. Okay, someone died. Okay, now, when we have a response to the word killed, okay, now it's a little bit different. If you noticed it, the emotions attached to the word killed. Someone was killed, got hit by a car. Okay, someone was killed in an auto accident, someone was killed in a fall. Okay, now all of a sudden those emotions are a little bit different. Okay, where are you going with this, Larry? Where are you going with this? Hold on, I'm gonna tell you. Now, let's get to murder. Now, how does that one feel? How does that emotion feel, murder? Now, when a person has accumulated a lot of people who have died in their life, a lot of people who were killed in their life, and now let's just throw a cherry on top of it, a lot of people that were murdered in their life. You have some significant, sustainable trauma because you stack three of the biggest conditions that man has to deal with, like a sandwich. Okay? And without the proper assistance in how to deal with that, nobody gets out safe. The family doesn't get out safe, the community doesn't get out safe, nobody gets out safe. Does that make sense to anybody? Does that make sense? Okay, so now, I want to bring some people up here. Let's see here. Who out here in the audience here said that they could come up today and speak a little bit? Now folks, this wasn't meant to be putting people on the spot here. I asked certain people to come up here so that we if you haven't come from where we're coming from here, with gang violence and incarceration, it's a certain type of incarceration. Because it doesn't just end when you get done being locked up. Okay? If you're on certain lists, your life is on that list for life. Okay, so the challenges aren't just going to happen overnight and just go away. So I would like to ask I'm going to just ask a couple of quick questions here, and we'll lead into it. If each of you could just answer this question. What were some of the traumas that you brought upon yourself with your involvement in whatever it was that you was doing? What type of trauma did you bring upon yourself? What type of trauma did you bring upon your family? Okay? And if you can think about the community, where did it leave things? How were things when you left things?
Thank you, Brother Norman. I will defer to my sister first.
I'm Shawanda. So I'll answer that question. I think the trauma first, I would say that I brought on my family was what caused me the most. It was like a reverse traumatic experience in itself, right? Seeing my family go through pain and struggles behind my poor choices and having to deal with the aftermath of the choices I made time and time again, right? So I've been incarcerated, I can't even tell you how many times as a juvenile, and I went to prison 4 times. And on the 4th sentence, I kept getting like 9 months or, whatever, 11 months. And then when I went the 4th time, they gave me a 10-year sentence. And at that time, I had an 8-year-old child that I left behind to be raised by my family. And so that trauma was something I endured, having to visit with my mother and my child for 7 years in prison through the visiting. You know what I'm saying? Not being able to parent my child and experience him growing up and maturing, and then coming home to have to deal with the trauma that he experienced from not only having his mother be incarcerated, but his father as well. So we both left our son behind. And so, and at that time, he was, without that supervision, he became involved in gangs and drug activity at a very young age. And, so I had to deal with that, deal with, my mother having to raise my child. And on top of that, I had a sister at the time who was struggling with addiction, so my mom had her kids as well. And so, and she was full-time working. Hey, no, now's not the time, sorry. She was working full-time, so, she would go off on me all the time at visiting about how she was struggling with trying to parent my child and my sister's kids. And, and so after every visit, I had to think about that as well, like with the harm that I caused, not only to my family, not only to my son, but my mom as well. And then, and then the community impacts and my poor choices. I was running a gun when I was out there. And, I wouldn't, at the time, like, I didn't see it as like suicidal behavior, but I was living my life so risky and on the edge at a very young age that it didn't matter if I lived or died most days. And so I had to think about that too, and like my poor choices and how I exposed my son to that lifestyle and how he was, continuing in my footsteps.
My name is Willie Nobles. I'm the Vice President of the Black Prisoners Caucus Community Group. And first, I have to thank Dr. Aranda for allowing us to have this space to be able to deal with emotions and talk about trauma and be able to come together and connect, right? I think that is mandatory. So, I'm one of the ones that was raised in this neighborhood in the early 90s, in the late 80s, and I was a terror, right? And that's what I did for this community. I terrorized this community, and not only did I bring trauma to myself, I brought it to my family members, I brought it to my loved ones, and I also brought it to my friends. And now, as I'm older and I'm wiser, and now I can think back on all the mistakes I've done, that's the reason we're here today. We're here to give back, we're here to build community, because a lot of it, I took a life, right? I took a life in this neighborhood, and that's something I have to deal with every single day. That's my drive, that's my motivation, and that's why I do the work I do. And also, family members have been kind of in this lifestyle. And it's like a revolving door, and I've seen my friends come and go. Like Mr. Larry said, Larry was someone we used to look up to try to keep us out of the neighborhood. It didn't work, but he still tried, and he was one of the positive role models that we needed to at least know that we had someone if we needed someone. So he's been there, and the reason why we're here to even talk about trauma and wellness and healing is because we believe in it. We understand it. We understand that there's a lot of trauma in these urban neighborhoods. We understand there's a lot of trauma in these social structures. So for us, that's why we're here. We're coming together to connect, and we're coming to do what we do, y'all. Thank you.
Just coming into space as a mindfulness practitioner. I'm Faraji Bhakti, the Wellness Director of the BPCCG, and also Co-Executive Director of Yoga Behind Bars. And thinking back to the questions that the Brother Norman offered and invited us to, like, there was a couple parts to it. I think I will start with the community impact. It felt to me, as I heard Larry access the questions, like accountability to self. It didn't say like, what did I sprout out through to blossom these fruits of dysfunction? It was, what was my accountability? And so, I sold drugs in this community to support my children. And we can have another discussion that furthers like why that decision. That decision was made, and time again I was sent back to prison trying to support my children without the proper adult financial literacy. And we're really grateful to see one of my brothers in space that his part of liberation for reintegrating individuals is all about financial literacy. That's all he's doing. All I'm doing, I'm trying to bring the healing and the trauma-informed yoga and Sambo. Like, there's so many pockets that are vacuous, sucking everything up. So I left vacuums in my community for the people that were addicted, for the transactions that were made, and I learned what transactional love was. Transactional love. I loved my individuals that I was in that lifestyle with because I was getting something that would help me provide for the access needs of myself and my children. So that's where I had a loyalty to. What was the trauma on self, I think was another part. It was an overriding drive. That's what I'm seeing now, present day. Like, I had to override. I had to, like, kids need to eat and have diapers and food, so it ain't no wait 2 weeks for a job that I actually was getting child support taken out of for children I support. That didn't even make no sense to me. And these babies needed to eat. And my own childhood trauma of being hungry at many foster cares made me override any decision that was gonna look like my children not having a meal.
Tired of being in these streets, damn, something's gotta change. God's got something for me, so until the day comes, I'll pray. Keep your head up, take it from me, all you gotta do is pray. Keep your head up. Tired of being in these streets, damn, something's gotta change. God's got something for me, so until the day comes, I'll pray.
Quickly, okay, this is a friend of mine. His name is Vincent Sherrill. Anybody out here know Vincent Sherrill? Okay, yeah. He's been tapping in. We've been staying in touch for quite some time. And I asked him to come in and speak a little bit since he's one of the people that's still inside, and for him to talk a little bit about his experience and what he's been doing to try to heal through that. You on, Vince? Ready?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, first and foremost, just really thankful for being in this space with y'all and being in this space and just recognizing that there's pieces that exist in the neighborhood of my childhood. I have to start off first by being this is really the first time for me publicly speaking to my community. I would first have to say that first apologizing, for the harm, for the tragic harm, that impacted, still impacts so many lives that I'm still dealing with it. So just first and foremost, just for me to come back, I know it's not much. But I appreciate coming on to stay in this space. I have the opportunity to just express that. Me and Larry go back a long time in the beginning of everything. Was called. Larry was allowed to come to the county jail to see. At the time, and everything on my head, in my house, Larry came through and was speaking to me. And it was like, I was so needed because I was in the hole, deep in the hole in the county jail. And just really going through, not having all my faculties at that time. I was as clear-minded as I am today. Thank God for that. Just to be able to put a lot of PCP-induced mind that I possessed at that time. And so living on the wonder, he brought the community's concern for me, the community's questions of what's going on.
We got a few things here we want to close up with. I don't know if he was able to hear what Vincent was talking about, but he was talking about, in addition to what he's had to go through, the pain that he's had to go through, what he was also talking about some of the steps that he's been taking in his life right now, okay, to work on himself, to work on that pain, since there hasn't been the resources available, okay? And that's one of the things I'm hoping that we can start today, knowing what types of resources that our people need that are still incarcerated, knowing what resources that they need out here, that we can start being advocates, because not everybody has to go, thank God, through the situation of having to be incarcerated, having loved ones being taken from us for long periods of time, okay, to be able to impact that situation for someone else. You feel what I'm saying? So we want to start taking a look at how we can start building that community. Dr. Marcia Tate, not only is she our illustrious leader over here, but I asked her to come and talk about one of the things here that we in the community of Hilltop already have implemented. And I'm sure everybody has heard about healing circles, right? You've heard about healing circles. Come in that it just kind of touched down, didn't we? Yes. So Dr. Marshall, could you come and just share a little bit about what the community is doing on that end?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Larry. And thank you for what you're doing. Give it my clap. I want to say, Vincent Sherrill, I love you. You know that. And I'm just so glad to see you contributing to society on the outside. Keep it up, black man.
Yes, sir.
All right. And before I talk about the healing circle, I got to tell you, I spent a decade at Monroe Prison. And although I had never been to prison, my job there was to teach. And I was invited by Mary Flowers to come for a visit for Kwanzaa. And after that, I never left. People told me, oh, you can teach through the it was prison, no, education, no, it was something behind bars. UBB, University Behind Bars, thank you. And that's how I began teaching at Monroe. And yes, Kamanti was one of my number ones. Thank you, Kamanti. Also, Vincent was one of my students, and I really speak to them with great respect because they taught me how to teach. You know, I can teach, I learned the fundamentals, but you know, when you're talking heart to heart, and you're really invested in somebody learning, you have to understand who you're dealing with. And so the heart open helps you to do that. And that's what inside the prison helped me to learn what teaching really was. And much respect. And some brilliant people inside there. And I just want to say a thing about grief. Because I understand grief did not begin in poverty. Grief did not begin because somebody disrespected me. Grief did not begin in, you know, the history of civil rights. Grief goes way back. It's generational. We've been dealing with it for multiple generations. Okay, and in particular, not just black people. All people have been dealing with this grief of coming into a country, of taking other people's land from them, of being able to live here and steal everything to say you are rich and other people are poor, to create the inequality we have created in this country. That's all what the grief is about. And for black people, grief started in those ships. When you're laying in the bottom of a ship for not weeks, but months, and you don't know where you're going, you don't know where your next destination is, and you don't know where your mama and your daddy are, your children, your cousins, your brother and sisters, that's grief. Okay, and we went through that. We came here without knowing what happened to the people behind us, who were left behind, and we got here and we didn't know what was about to happen. And some of us knew we had to survive that horrible, horrible tragedy. And we did. That's why we're still here today. We, for all intents and purposes, should no longer exist. There are all kinds of people in the world who have gone extinct. All right? But we're still here. And we need to really think about that grief, because grief also causes resiliency. Now, one of the things that happened to me, and I'll never forget it, I don't know if you were there, Kamanti, but it was actually one of those classes that Willie Williams was teaching, and you know, I was talking about going back to your family and how family has been disintegrated. So what ways are you going to go back and give and be a part of a unit? And this brother raised his hand and he said, what if you don't have a family? Or what if the family you have is the reason you are here? And I thought, wow, I didn't even know anything about that. You know, and that's why it's really important not just to tell, but also to listen, right? Because you got to understand what you're dealing with. And this person said that it was, you know, the grief, the trauma that he dealt with came right out of his family. So if he was going to heal, it couldn't be right in going back to the family. That just wasn't going to work. So we don't look at everything as a cookie cutter approach across the board. Everybody's dealing with something. And one of the things I think really helped, because I went to a wedding on Saturday, it was a beautiful wedding. Everyone looked so gorgeous and beautiful. And I thought, wow, God has allowed us to experience this beautiful occasion. I went to another event last week. What was that we were all together with the BPC folk? Was it a meeting we had here? There's just so many things that are productive and good, and it reminds me that when you're in prison, just because you were in prison doesn't mean you're no longer part of a community. And we have reciprocity. You don't just take from a community, you have to give to the community too. All right? And that's how it has worked for millennium. That's how it works. That's how we do it. So once we remember who we are and understand where we came from, then we can't go wrong. We have a blueprint. The ancestors have left it for us. So we are always a part of the community, whether or not we are physically here or physically in prison, wherever we are. When we get out of that situation, when we come back home, we are in community. And I was looking at what you wrote, what you had on the board. Illness starts with what? I. But wellness starts with what? We. So there's no healing that can happen in your own little self. No. You've got to be a part of a community. You've got to be a part of somebody. You've got to be accountable to people. You've got to have people watching you. You've got to have a witness in your life. All right? And to your life. All right? And that's when we start to get healthy. When you start to give some advice to somebody else. You're not just taking it, me. Well, if that didn't happen to me, forget about that. What are you doing for other people right now? That's where the healing begins. And so as we're here together, remember, wellness, not illness. We're leaning into wellness and not illness. Okay. So Larry asked me to actually get up here and talk about the healing circle. Thank you. The healing circle that happened right here during COVID when this entire block had, I believe it was 49 tents. And it surrounded Evergreen. We couldn't even get in the building. Everybody was living here. And actually it was Larry who took me around the building. And we had some water. I think we had a few, things we were giving people as a gift, right? And then we invited them. We said, well, next week if you come, we're going to have a gathering. Let's just get together and talk about it. And that week we got together and we had a little circle. It wasn't that big at first, and we said, let's get a microphone, get some music. Do you know the most powerful thing in my view that happened over that about 4 to 6 week period was the number of people from the community who came to partner with us. I mean, there were people here who did HIV testing, they were doing COVID testing, they were giving out food. We had lived experience they were not that old of an organization. They had cards from the Visa cards that if you found yourself in the circle, you would get a card. They were feeding people from Ezell's. And you were there. That's right, Paraji. You were right in the circle. And people started really sharing their lived experience, They talked about how they got homeless. So many people had gotten homeless were from the Hilltop. And the Hilltop is a changing neighborhood. See, that trauma doesn't go away. This is all part of the trauma. So people are displaced, walking around and living in Hilltop but have no home. And some of them had issues with mom, so they couldn't go back to mom's, they got to be out, but they knew that this was still home, right? Well, we got to talking so much, we had several workshops just right out in our parking lot. And to the extent that we started talking about, do you know you have the right to vote? Do you know what your rights are as citizens? We started empowering. People were getting Visa cards. They were even talking about where they were going to move to. And it wasn't long after that the mayor said, move them out. Because we were empowering people. They knew they could vote. Uh-oh, there's trouble coming. And we did not end the homeless situation. I'm not going to pretend like we did. But one thing I think we did was we had a human conversation with other human beings who are not homeless. They are in a condition in which they don't have a house. See, but they're still human beings. And just like we told those brothers in prison, just because you're in prison doesn't mean you don't have a community. We say the same thing to people who don't have a house. Doesn't mean you are no longer part of the community. And it was powerful, it was empowering, because people were seeing the power they had. They thought it was useless, they had given up. And now here they were finding out, oh, we could do something about this. Not only that, we can help somebody else. And we think out of that came community building. And it was a beautiful thing. We really worked with the people in the community. They were moved out. I still see some of them from time to time. And I want to honor you, Larry, because I think that this imagery of people who were incarcerated or had no home, right? There's some negative connotation behind that doesn't even belong. Like, where did that come from? That not having a house or being locked, like, where did we get off saying you're still, a victim? You're still victimizing people. You're still in that status. No, you're not in that status. So I think what happens when we come back into community and remember our greatness, remember whose we are, where we came from, who we are, and what our work is on this earth. When we get to that place, then we know we have work to do and we are all relevant. And I just want to honor the experience that brothers and sisters have being locked up. Because that cannot feel good. It was hard for me to go teach and hear the clang behind you. It's like, ooh, that's not nothing nice. So to live in that condition is a very difficult one. So I want to honor you for surviving it. And not only that, I see more brothers I taught inside prison. Outside, I know something was going on right. I know something right was happening. And I don't see them going back in, not the way they were looking at that wedding the other day. There's some people who are very committed. I may not be living the life I want, but I know one place I'm not going back to. Come on. You know. And what we have to do is support each other. Because when one person goes to prison, it's been said, your mama goes to prison, your daddy goes to prison, your neighbors go to prison, your cousins go to prison. Everybody goes to prison. All right, that cannot be good for building community. So right now we're going to focus on building community. It's all about the circle. I envisioned as you spoke today, we could have a circle right now. And we could sit in that circle and talk about the trauma we have faced. And I don't care if you were incarcerated or not, everyone has faced trauma. And everyone has faced a situation they did not know how to get out of. And let's just be honest and have that conversation. Because I might learn from somebody who's been incarcerated. And somebody who's incarcerated might teach somebody else and might learn from somebody who works with incarcerated folk. So we're all here for a reason. We're here to uplift. We're going to raise the vibrations of the hilltop today with the work we are doing. Yes, let nobody come back. Let nobody come back to the hilltop and say, I'm here to gangbang. See, first of all, I got to tell you, gangs are not always bad. All right, we turn them into bad. And don't forget, there's a system that made sure that people who had to feed their babies were going to get drugs and doing those drugs, and now they're in prison, and we're looking at him. Well, let's look at the system that didn't bother to give him a job. You know, or a proper education. Do you know that the average person in prison has a 10.2-year-old level of education? That's 4th grade. That's not. You think you was gangbanging and you got yourself in prison? I'm gonna give you a little credit for that. But I want you to know there's a system out here. And this system knows exactly what the plan is. You are just part of it. So it's so important once we know that to to never be part of it again. And part of that means we got to step back, we got to embrace good living, we got to go on and educate ourselves so we understand what the system has to offer and how to take what we need and how to build our own systems that win. Because we're winning people. We should have been extinct, but we're still here. So we are a winning people. That's what we're going to stick with. I'm going with the winning ticket. And I think all of us need to go on and win, because that's what we are capable of. So with that, I hope I said
it. Tired of being in these streets, damn, something's gotta change. God's got something for me, so until the day comes, I'll pray. Keep your head up, take it from me. All you gotta do is pray. Keep your head up. Tired of being in these streets, damn, something's gotta change. God's got something for me, so until the day comes, I'll pray.
Folks, look, I know everybody's going like, y'all don't even look at your watches. That's what I like about y'all. See, when something's good, everybody look at their watches and stuff like that. Now, I just got a little piece of something left here. I was sharing this with a dear friend of mine yesterday, who's an attorney, and she's reviewing cases of people that are coming on appeals. And we're having this conversation. And I told her, I said, you know why I'm excited about this work that we're doing? I said, because the folks that are coming back out of jail, that are coming back into the communities, they're the ones, they're the problem solvers. They're the ones that's going to make this thing work. They're the ones that's going to be the driving force behind the reclamation of our communities. They're the seeds that's coming back to be planted to rebuild these communities. And I get excited about that. Because I know that the people that I know that came from the streets know what hard work is, know what being on the grind is, okay? And I figure like this, if we can be on the grind today when we made out here on these streets, then we can definitely get on the grind and make it better so that we can all live back here again. I honestly believe that. This is all because I would like for us to take home and we're going to start focusing on the community, the family, and the individual. Okay? That's a whole, it's a package deal. It's not just a person getting out and being incarcerated. We're talking about a family. Let's start looking at our families and asking what we can do to help the families that are out here. Okay? Let's see what we can do about that. The community. Okay? What gaps are missing in our community? So many of our children are turned to the streets, so we need to find out what those gaps are. And then in mass. Anybody been out to Telecom? Chocolate City? Does it look like there's a rec center out there? And I'm not talking about auto. Does it look like there's a place for young people to go out other than out on the streets throwing bottles? So now, why can't we collectively, I got at least 4 or 5 people out there that I know, and people got somebody out there in Telecom. So why can't we collectively go help that community get a rec center? More than one voice. These types of things is what's going to turn the corner, folks. So I'm not going to keep running my mouth. Is there anything anybody would like to say? Yes, sir.
Sir, I just wanted to say for the first part, thank you. I think what you're doing is awesome. I just actually got released as a 9/11 before, and I had the thought while I was in the hole at one point about the same thing. How could we, as a community, do something about the gun violence in Tacoma? The solution that I came to was that I ultimately didn't have a solution, but what I could do in that moment was to collect interviews, get my number out, and hold like a podcast to ask individuals that are incarcerated about their experience and their gang violence, how old they were when they joined the gang, what age they were first exposed to guns. And at this point, that's what I'm collecting, that's what I'm accumulating. I don't know what to do with it, aside from spreading awareness. But I just thought, I don't even go to this college, I was just invited to this event, and I saw what you guys are doing. I think this is, it's awesome that you're doing this, and yeah, that's all I say.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Oh, man, that's beautiful. Listen, let me tell you that did everybody hear that? Okay, man. Now I get these grant requests for proposals all the time. I just don't have time or desire because I just don't have anybody surrounding me to put it together. But I get these requests like crazy money. They want to give me money to do just what you're talking about, gun violence. Now, that's an innovative way. Now, I'm sure that if we were to take that issue right there and use that idea and build on that with the collective force here, that would bring resources into this body here, into this community. You feel what I'm saying? Into the, into the prison community, okay? Into your family and stuff like that. So that's why I'm suggesting, folks, this is not a dead-end conversation by any stretch of the imagination. This is an opportunity to start building, okay? Now, nothing that we've said today is rocket science. Nothing that we've said today here is something that you haven't heard before. But now, what we're saying here is, let's put it in a package. Okay, rather than just talk about the individual, let's talk about the individual, family, community, as if it's one entity. It's moving. When I say move, we move. Everybody moves. Okay, so let's get on that tip right there. Is there anything anybody else would like to share? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Creek Bors. I am the founder of MOLA, Mothers of Living Ancestors. So I am MOLA, Mothers of Living Ancestors. My husband did 12 years in prison in Mississippi. I always go back and tell people that Life, the movie with Martin Lawrence, is a real prison. You know, that my husband was there. Anyhow, we moved here about 16 years ago, and we wanted to start over. We just both wanted to be away from whatever we were going through in our respective places. When we came to Tacoma, it started off beautiful. However, what ended up happening is we didn't find our community. We didn't have a community because we weren't from here. Our kids got sucked into gangs, and we have a son that was shot that almost died about 4 years ago. I always tell people at trauma came my triumph, because it gave me a direction of no other mother should get these phone calls. Every year there's a mother that's getting a call that her child has been shot, murdered, maimed by gun violence. And there's not enough resources. And if you call the city of Tacoma, they'll tell you that they don't have any funding. So I went ahead and started my own nonprofit so I don't have to ask them and let them tell me to my face that there is no funding. My concern for this community is the gaps. For people like us that didn't grow here, that didn't grow up here, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard bridging that gap. So if people are coming back into the community or moving into this community, we have to start learning to love people as part of this community. Because I don't care if you didn't grow up here, you are now a part of this community, and we should be equally taking care of each other. No more closing the doors, no longer allowing the brick walls in this community. And I hope that this conversation will start here, that just because I don't know you, and just because I didn't grow up with you, and just because I didn't know you in prison, does not mean that I can't help you, and that we can't work together.
The one and only, the man without the rolling. So, Dun Dill Entertainment, what we do at Dun Dill Entertainment is digital multimedia. As you can see, due to COVID-19 and everything else, remote jobs is what's going on right now. Transitioning from prison, it's tough. It's tough. You know, once you get past the, I just got out and I'm applying for a job, once you get past that issue, there's the next issue of having a skill set. You know, if you've been incarcerated for too long, you probably didn't pick up what's going on in the world because you missed out. computer technology. This is the new thing that's going on. We offer a variety of services through Duck Dillon Tammy, from graphic design, video production. As you can see, I'm here with my camera. And then, of course, movies. Movies is one of the things that I progressed to as I've been doing what I do. I DJ. Oh, it's a whole list. Web building, web maintenance, it's just a number of things. It all goes together when it comes to digital multimedia. So you have all of these different jobs that are here that when it comes to digital media, it's not about you necessarily having degrees, it's just about you knowing how to do the job. So, which, coming from prison, this is kind of how you have to work. Going to be a lot of jobs that you want that you're not qualified for, and of course you're going to be disqualified when they find out that you were incarcerated. A few of the jobs that, so when you think digital media, you think of a movie, sometimes you look at a movie, you don't realize all the moving parts that go on. Some of the moving parts are content creation, right? Content creation. After even this event we're doing right here, I'm recording everything. I help put the presentation together. As I construct this whole process, I will be using the slides, the stuff we use from the graphics, I will use video, attach with other graphic design, and then of course I will put it all together, and then we're going to publish it on our Roku channel, right? And that's full-time production in any way you want to look at it. Feel me? These are some of the things that we offer at Dillon Entertainment.
Tired of being in these streets, damn, something's gotta change. God's got something for me, so until the day comes, I'll pray. Keep your head up, take it from me, all you gotta do is pray. Keep your